Greetings, YouTube. The doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Marvel Contest of Champions. And today, we're going to talk about Incursions because we do have a new Incursions coming up next week, very soon, part of the February event. And I wanted to talk about the Incursion hacks and particularly Incursion boss hacks. And then we're also going to go through what champions can utilize which boss hacks the best. We're going to go through 4 champions to use in Incursions, and that can use these boss hacks pretty effectively. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or a comment, and do not forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I got another video out. All right, this is all of them in alphabetical order, starting with all out attacks all the way over to toxic advance. These are the boss rare hacks in this. If I'm missing any, please leave a comment pointing out which one I'm missing. This took a long time of going in and out of Incursions over and over and over again, taking pictures of the screenshots, putting them into a couple of different programs, editing the pictures, and then putting them all together in a PowerPoint. Very long, arduous process, but I've got them here. I think this is a pretty comprehensive list of all the rare boss hacks. So let's kind of go through each one. All out attacks, so you increase your ability accuracy and increase the potency of all attack enhancements. So those are the basic hacks by 50%, and then all of these pretty much go up if you've got a relic. All out effects is in the same line, except attackers gain a 10% increase to buff and debuff duration and increase the potency of reinforcement hacks, which is another base. And then this, if you have a relic, it doubles the potency effects by this hack, which isn't too bad. So buff and debuff. If you got a buff or debuff champ, that particular, like an Angela, who can really, and you have a relic on them, who can really benefit from an increased Fury. That's a plus 20% to Fury. Armor Burst, so the attacker's basic attack have a 20% chance, which, if the attacker has a relic equipped to them, the damage becomes 100% of the attacker's armor rating. So the percent to get armor breaks does not go up. Or armor ups, but the damage does. So 20% chance to grant them an 8-second armor up buff and granting a 30% armor rating. Special attacks inflict a burst of damage equal to 50% of the attacker's current armor rating. We've got attribute boost. Striker gauge fills passively, and then per second, and all attribute basic hacks have their potency increased by 150%. Alternating enhancement, so if you end with a different combo, 20% prowess buff for 12 seconds, and then when striking, you have a 10% per prowess to be passively unblockable. This actually is a pretty good one for a couple of different combos at the ready. The attacker's spirit gauge starts filled, and then the attacker gains unblockable buff for 6 seconds on the last hit of their striker, plus an additional second for each damaging debuff on the opponent. Buff Cornucopia. This is one of the better ones. So whenever a buff is gained, there's a 50% chance to gain another random buff that lasts for 10 seconds. The chance for this to activate decreases slightly for 8 seconds each time it activates. This chance decreases ignore ability accuracy, immunity, and reversal. If the attacker has a relic equipped, the decrease for reactivation chance is halved. Compounding harm, inflicting a damage over time, has a 50% chance to inflict an armor break. And if the attacker has a relic, the armor break chance is increased to 75%, and it lasts for 2 seconds longer. Draining degeneration, knocking them down, puts a power drain, and if you knock them down again, then and whenever, so while this debuff is active, whenever the defender is inflicted with a power drain, so if you knock them down again and you get this one, then they get a degen equal to 400% of the attacker's rating. If you have a relic, it applies 2 of these instead. And we're going to talk about a champ that can use that. Hemostatic charge, inflicting a bleed, applies a power sting. The power sting deals direct damage. yada, yada, yada. So if the attacker has a relic, the power sting damage is increased by 100%. So this would be good for, well, for like a Wolverine or a Nick Fury or something like that. Defensive Cascade. While under the effects of an armor up, your attacks have a 50% chance to inflict a stun. And then if you have a relic, the stun can trigger through the block. Entropic Shield, performing a well-timed block, or auto block, increases block proficiency and inflicts a bleed debuff. So that would go good with Hemostatic Charge. A lot of these work in combo with each other. So there's Impact Purge. Heavy attacks have a 90% chance to nullify the opponent's buffs, inflict a degen buff, inflicting 60% direct damage. If a buff is nullified, an additional degen is triggered. If you have a relic, up to 2 buffs can be nullified, and a degen is inflicted in this way, deals 100% damage instead of 60. Keep it going every 10 hits. On the combo meter, applies an armor break, and the defender equal to 60% of their armor and the spirit gauge fills at double rate. Martial Artist increases attack rating, buff and debuff duration, and offensive combat power rate. If the attacker has a relic equipped, then the combat power rate goes up even more. Poisonous Truth. Attacks against the stunned opponent have a 30% chance to apply a poison buff equal to their attack rating. So this is if you parry, then you hit them, you'll put a poison on them. While the poison inactivated attacker gains a true damage buff, ignoring defender's resistance and armor. And if there's a relic, you gain a true strike and a true sense, so there's no evade on that one. Lightning Fists, Light Ender combos have a 30% chance to put a shock on, dealing 395% attack rating as energy. And if you have a relic, then that chance is increased to 60%, and it's 500% of the attack damage. Perpetual Offense, landing a special attack, has a 100% chance to grant an indefinite prowess, increasing special attack damage by 60. Max stacks 3. If you have a relic, this is increased to 80. Max stacks 6, and these are indefinite. Pro Degeneration, whenever the attacker lands the final hit of a heavy attack, they gain a 10% potency prowess buff for 10 seconds. If during special attacks, all hits have a 20% chance per prowess effect to inflict a degen. And if you have a relic, you gain 2 prowess effects instead. Medium ender combos with Pyrotechnics and deal an Incinerate that does damage. 40% chance to do that. If you have a relic, it's 80%, and the damage goes from 225% to 300. Special counter Relic, whenever a Power Sting effect triggers, gain a prowess, increasing special attack damage by 50%. If special attacks are unblockable while this is active, if the attacker has a relic equipped, gain 3 of these prowess buffs instead. This would be good for like Spider-Ham. Tide of Combat Relic. Whenever a non-damaging debuff expires on the opponent, 50% chance to gain a Fury, lasting 10 seconds and granting 35%. If you've got a relic, then it's a 100% chance. So this is good for anyone that gets Furies. Rage, whenever a Fury is gained, 100% chance to gain 25% of a bar of power. And if you have a relic, the cooldown is 1.5, and it gains a 50% bar of power instead. This is good for Fury. And it could be good with Tide of Combat. Strategic Movement, activating Evade or Dexterity grants dormant, unblockable, and Fury charges. Any attack consumes 1 unblockable charge to become unblockable. Basic attacks convert all Fury charges into Fury buffs lasting a half a second and increasing the attack by 200%. The Fury buffs are removed on activation of a special attack. If the attacker has a relic equipped, well-timed blocks grant charges. Okay, and then finally, Toxic Advance. Heavy attacks, unstoppable, and unblockable attacks have a 50% chance to grant an armor up buff, giving 1,000 armor up rating, 15 seconds, and inflict a poison, dealing damage equal to the attacker's armor rating. If the attacker has a relic equipped, the armor up is 1,500, and the poison debuff lasts for 5 seconds instead of 3. So that is all of our boss hacks. A lot of these are enhanced by basic hacks, and some of the abilities that the champions have are also enhanced by basic hacks. So, for instance, there is a basic hack that enhances shock damage or incinerate damage or degen damage or poison damage. So you want to pair those up with these boss hacks. So let's go over our first guy here, and that is Hercules. So Hercules benefits greatly from a specific combination of boss and basic hacks. I put the boss hacks in here. So martial artist, so he gains a 20% attack rating, and once he's at feat of strength 12, he does tremendous amounts of damage, but now all of a sudden it gets better because of this. 30% buff and debuff duration, which he doesn't really do buffs except if you do a special intercept. You want that. And then a 20% offensive combat power rate, so you want him to gain power as much as he can so that you can do special intercept special twos over and over and over again. If he's got a relic equipped, then defensive combat rate is increased by 30%, so that's whenever you get hit. Toxic advance, heavy attacks, which he is based off of heavy attacks a lot. Heavy attacks, unstoppable, unblockable attacks have a 50% chance to cram an armor up and inflict a poison. And then if you got a relic, then that goes up and the poison debuff lasts longer. Perpetual offense, launching a special attack has a 100% chance to grant an indefinite prowess, increasing the special attack. So this goes on before the special attack goes off, and you can stack that up to 6 times. It's indefinite. So once he does a intercept special 2 or a special intercept special 2, if you pop this off or you've got this on, it does so much damage. Now, there's a few things that that also can feed into this. So debuff upgrade stun is a basic hack which increases the duration of stuns. So if you were to, say, parry an opponent, then you would stun them, and then he can start going through all this stuff. Special refund and unflinching power. So I've got a thing here. So unflinching power, unstoppable or unblockable attacks have a 50% combat power rate. Now, the trick with this is you want to get Hercules to go, basically to get knocked down. So he goes immortal. And once he goes immortal, all of his attacks are unblockable. And that kicks this in. So you get your unflinching power, which increases your combat power rate because all of his attacks are unblockable. And your offensive combat power rate is increased if you've got martial artist on. And then this feeds into that. So basically what you do, you get hit, you get knocked down, you go into your immortal, which if he's max sig, it's going to last for a long time. And then you just power up to a special 2 over and over and over again and just blast your opponent. Now the other thing that is here is special refund, which is right. I thought it was in this. Well, special refund is that your special attacks cost less. They cost less. So if you got 2 bars of power and use a special 2, you're not going to go to 0. They cost, I think, 20% less. So that allows you to mitigate the amount of cost that comes in. So with this build, step 1 is you get knocked out and your immortal pops, and then you're able to use the unflinching power because all your attacks are unblockable, in addition to martial artist, to be able to get lots and lots and lots of power. And then if you can parry your opponent, the stuns last longer, so they can't even actually come after you. And then you can just go up to your special 2 and blast them. Now, Toxic Advance pops because all of your hits are unblockable, and they generate a whole bunch of power because of martial artist and because of unflinching power. And perpetual offense, when you hit that special 2, does a whole bunch of damage. So, and I've seen this in action, and it works very well. You want these 3. You don't necessarily have to have special refund or the debuff upgrade, but you should be looking for unflinching power very much. All right. So what is the next build here? The next build we've got is with Angela. And really, the basic hacks just complement all of these boss hacks that are here. And any combo of these will work very well. But I think the ones that you really, really want are perpetual offense. So she lands a special attack, and it gives her a prowess buff. And buff cornucopia, because she always is gaining buffs. You're going to gain more buffs. And she works off of heavies. So anything, she uses heavies more than a lot of other champs because she's got her bonus to damage on heavies. So Toxic Advance is good, which gives her another armor up buff. She's got buff cornucopia. Then she's got a chance to get another buff. And then she's going to put poison on them. Keep It Going is another good one. Because it puts a armor break on. Strategic Movement is another one, because if she's got a relic, well-timed blocks will give her Furies. And she gets Furies anyway. And then Tide of Combat, so whenever a non-damaging debuff expires on an opponent, 50% chance to gain a Fury. So if you parry them, that's a stun, and once that's over with, then you gain a Fury. And if you get a lot of Furies, it's going to keep going. Armor Burst. So the basic attacks have a 20% chance to grant an armor up buff. If you've got buff cornucopia, then you're going to get another buff. And special attacks inflict a burst of damage equal to 50% of the attacker's armor rating. So if you've got this, and this, it's just insane. It's absolutely insane. And if you've got a relic, then the damage is 100% of the armor rating. And she already gets armor ups anyway that last a very, very long time. And then there's a whole bunch of basic things that can advance off of this again. So, again, these are really good, rare boss hacks to think about. All right, next guy, Aegon. Again, we're going to go over the boss hacks or the rare hacks that you can use, and then you can bring in different basic hacks to complement this. So Defensive Cascade. So while under the effects of an armor up, your attacks have a 50% chance to inflict a stun debuff for 3 seconds. When triggered, the chance is 30%. If the attacker has a relic equipped, the stun can trigger through the block. Now, you need to be able to get armor ups, and that's where this comes in. So heavy attacks grant an armor up. So you get the armor up, and then while you're under the effects of the armor up, because this armor up lasts for can last for 5 seconds, you got a 50% chance to stun the opponent for 3 seconds, even through a block. You're going to put a poison on him. Buff Cornucopia, of course, because he does get a bunch of different buffs. You're going to get more buffs. And then, of course, Perpetual Offense. So when you land that special attack, this all works together very much when he is at over 100, I would say to 150 combo meter. Very little of this works before that. So you are going to have to build him up. And you do want to do that in the first fight. And lastly, this guy right here. Infamous Iron Man, infamous Doom. So Doom absolutely works. Both Dooms actually, but this is even better. Both Dooms work off of their heavy. They do their medium, which puts a shock on, and then a light, and then you go into your heavy, which if they've got a shock on them, then they're stunned, and then you can heavy them automatically. So knocking down an opponent with Draining Degeneration inflicts a power drain buff on them, draining 20% of the bar power, which is very easy to knock down an opponent because he's automatically able to do his heavies because of the shock stun that he does. So drains 20% of a bar power, and then while this debuff is active, whenever, and it lasts for 6 seconds, which is pretty long, whenever the defender is inflicted with a power drain, burn, or special lock, which he does power burns. He does a special power burn, inflicted degen. So he's going to be inflicting tons of degens. And if you got a relic on him, he does 2 degens. Impact Purge. Again, another one that works off of a heavy attack. You have a 90% chance to nullify one of the opponent's buffs and inflict a degen buff, inflicting 60% of an attack over direct damage. If the buff is nullified, you do an additional one, and then if you've got a relic, up to 2 buffs can be nullified. And the degen buffs inflicted in this way deal 100% instead of a little bit. Pro degeneration, whenever the attacker lands the final hit of a heavy, again, he does a lot of heavies, there's a 10% potency prowess that goes on for 10 seconds. During a special attack, all hits have a 20% chance per prowess effect to inflict another degen. So you can see where this goes. Poisonous Truth attacks against a stunned opponent. He stuns opponents very easily. 30% chance to apply a poison, and then if you have a equal to the attack rating for 8 seconds while this poison debuff is active, the attacker gains a true buff. If you got a rating, it's a true strike and a true sense. Awesome abilities. And then, of course, Toxic Advance. He does heavies a lot. You get an armor up and a poison, and it lasts for a while, and the armor up goes. So if you can get, and then there's a couple of basic hacks that will affect degen damage for these here and for these 3 here. So you definitely want to get that, so you enhance that degen damage. There's ones that affect armor ups, and he gets an armor up anyway, so you want to get that. So all great stuff. All great stuff. So I have been yammering on long enough about incursion hacks. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will catch everybody later.